Welcome back. Just one more time, ladies, gents, and non-binary pals. We have one more game of NACE Starleague Rocket League. It is SUNY Farmingdale, it is Cornell, and it is a beautiful day for a New York matchup here.
Let's go ahead and hop into the last game for Rocket League this evening before we transition over into Overwatch. As you mentioned, you've got
Farmingdale and Cornell always facing off, and it's nice to have that New York matchup in the Northeast Conference, and Gallico, Fresh Pickles, and Ice Alliance or Allegiance, rather, for Cornell University. Very regal names on that side. And Farmingdale got Otto, Ebest and Lil Fair. Actually, Ebest is a player I know. I've actually played with and against them in different leagues around Rocket League, community leagues, like United Rogue and also MLE. So that's a player that I certainly think would be my expectation for a player that could pop off within this matchup. But to be honest, it's just nice to see some more Rocket League on display and another glimpse of two teams that are on the come-up, looking to make a name.
Well, we do have the players ready and on the field, and Taco, I gotta be honest, the fact that you've played in a league with somebody doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be the player to watch.
I'm
just gonna throw that out there, all right?
No, they are, I believe me. Trust me on that.
Yeah, whatever you say. Well, we've got the game underway one way or the other. Already the first shot going just off the mark here. Gallico, instant counterattack, and there is goal number one. No time to rest here for us, Taco.
Not at all. And Gallico, talk about a flick. Wow, just launching that one. Nearly gets in all the way without even bouncing to get right on the goal line there. And we talk about being aware of the counters. I don't even blame the defense for being pushed up. I would not expect a flick to just go to the heavens like that. So I think that just kind of a fluke goal to open us up here, and I'm sure the players on Farmingdale will be able to adjust from there.
Look, all I'm saying is, if you can't flick the ball into the upper stratosphere, you're not flicking the ball correctly. All right, so just don't even give it a try. But there we saw Gallico give it his best effort, their best effort, I should say. But it's only one goal, and it's still a very young game here. And Reyna's looking for the net, cannot get around that ball. Hoping a solid opportunity to try and tuck that one in the upper 90. But dead and gone now as Ebest will inherit here. No flick on that one. Like I said, if you can't get into the upper stratosphere, you're doing something wrong. We'll still have the offense, though.
Yeah, well, despite the inability to get that singular flick, I still think that there's the components of what I want out of the attack from Farmingdale, but just not the end product. They're getting some high lobs. It's forcing the defense to adjust to it, and at times, it's not the cleanest touch, so it could be something they can build pressure with, but every touch needs to be clean. Otto, unfortunately, only rolling into GameStop, and all will go right back out to mid.
Oh, good look here. I think they were searching for that double tap, and they noticed the defense was there. Waved off pretty quick. They're there for the rotation now. One pass, GameStop. Good look at the net here, and there is nobody home. Ebest will tie things up here 1-1.
I'm trying to see what had happened here. Gallico and GameStop are both the players back, and once one misses, I think the other teammate was trusting in the process, maybe going out for some boost and realized their mistake a little bit too late. So that's going to be an equalizer after 90 seconds, so fairly even-handed showing here in game one.
Now, this is to say, it's an even-handed showing it this far in. Still have yet to see much more on the offensive side here for Cornell. They will find themselves in the blue half at the very least for now. They will be easily stopped by Otto. This one back to the midfield. Ebest trying to make a play on this one. Thunder is forced to make some sort of contact to get it away, but it's only momentarily. Engaging in some neutral shenanigans. Now Gallico almost actually snipes the upper 90 on that one. Wasn't meant to be. Once again, sent back to the midfield line here.
Certainly, I'm looking for some analytical play out of Cornell. I'm sure they're going to be adapting throughout this series. It is an Ivy League school, after all, so I'd expect all these guys to be in the books in the replay sessions, be able to identify the issues here. But at least for right now, it is certainly still in the data gathering phase because they're slowly figuring out how to defend against these plays, but it's just not enough over time. The ball just keeps throwing forward, and Reyes is going to collect a goal off a flick.
Well, you mentioned how they have the smarts, certainly, to deal with things, but that, I gotta be honest, that didn't look like the most well-put-together defense we've ever seen. Perhaps it was a one-off, certainly I hope so, but not the greatest look there for the Cornell defense. Perhaps there's just a misrotation. They'll get one back. Thunder off the back wall here, receiving from GameStop to tie things up very quickly.
And it's all hesitation. I feel like Ebes Drew almost waiting for the third man to come through. It's almost like, hey, you got that? The person goes, no. And then Drew goes, oh. And then it goes in. And it's just an immediate goal. And that's what happens when you slack off. The other team, as soon as they see that, they can pounce and get that equalizer. So it's right back to an even scoreline. And I'm still saying SUNY Farmingdale, as we've seen the game develop, I think they are the ones that put together, I would say, the more deadly opportunities. But, I mean, it still takes a lot of skill and a lot of heads-up play from the side of Cornell to notice a couple times when there is a gap in the defense, they take advantage.
That much is true. And you mentioned having deadly opportunities. I think you are right in a sense, because we're seeing some much more consistent offense there from Farmingdale, and of course they find the opportunity. This is Cornell. See, they're not making the most deadly opportunities, but when they find that gap, they are making use of it.
Great job by Gallico and Thunder to communicate with each other, because they know that they can advance up the field. They don't have to throw the ball away, but to have a lead blocker force the player to go through and then have the wherewithal mentally to be able to tuck it underneath them to put it into the open net, that takes a lot of patience. It takes a lot of composure, and it's a nice thing to see from Cornell in the lead now. Only 2 minutes. Farmingdale to do anything about it.
Again, it's a little bit curious. Cornell have had very little sustained offense, but they still find themselves in the lead. They're being outshot 7-4 presently. Nice control here, though, by GameStop off the back wall. Reigns will take it away. Tap down towards the mid. Gallico is already there with the pre-jump. Otto's going to try for the pinch mid here. Gallico has to recover and will be able to do so. Ebes Drew can't make the play. Reigns denied yet again here by Gallico. And once more, the maintenance of pressure on the orange side is not quite enough to punch it home, and they'll be sent packing.
That's going to be a very tough read, and that shows why. A little bit of a miss, but got with a clear. Gallico slowing things down. GameStop the commit, but ultimately will just be flying out to Thunder, send right on back. Long balls are going to be draining out a lot of time from the clock, so Farmingdale, you need to keep one eye on the ball and one eye on time remaining, because you don't want to get too in your head. Try to focus on defense, because you need to make sure you push up the field, otherwise this game one is going out the window.
That's true. There's a scramble back here, speaking of. Sending the game out the window. Oh, that was a nice fake. They've got a little bit of space and the option in the mid. It's Reynez, but the shot much too low and slow to make any sort of significant impact. Otto with the cross, though, will find a gap here in the defense, if only a little one, and that'll tie us back up.
Look at that vision. Honestly, this looked almost like a miss hit, but then Otto came in perfectly and hit it through, so what a field of vision there from Ebes Drew, tucking that pass in the middle. They're getting the goal, and just in time. 23 remaining, and Cornell's going to have to put together something one more time. We want to be able to take this game before the death, but this almost feels like an overtime match. It's been so close and really blow for blow, but as I say that, GameStop uncontested puts it just above that last defender.
And yet again, all it takes is one attack here from Cornell. They have the precision to do the job, and they once again apply the scalpel here to the net. 4-3 with 11 seconds to go. It's been great, consistent offense from Farmingdale, but they need to find just a little bit more here in the closing moments. Otto looking towards the back wall. There's nothing there, though. Ebes Drew was available, and they are desperate now to get something on target. Final second is gone. They've got a chance to keep it up. Nice pop here by Otto off the back where there's no contact made into the mid, but there's nobody there, and it will drop down right in front of the net, and Cornell will have game one.
And that is a heck of a showing from Cornell, because honestly, the start of that game, wasn't a huge fan of how their approach came. Yes, they got the flick, but ultimately it felt like Farmingdale was just rotating through, uncontested, getting the shots off, making sure that they were keeping pressure, and they were all able to get multiple shots going through. I'm seeing Gallico, 6 saves on the board. They're racking it all up, and I'm thinking, this isn't sustainable. You have to be able to move out. And then every single time they did, they got a goal. Talk about efficiency. I mean, they're really locked in their half for a decent amount of time, and yet still, every time that there was a chance to score, they took it. Whether that's sustainable, I suppose is really the question that I have for them in game number 2. Farmingdale has to feel like, at times, they felt like they were playing quickly, but they just weren't able to have the same level of efficiency and success as Cornell.
Right, there were a heck of a lot of moments where they were on the back foot, and I was just thinking to myself, like, what exactly is the game plan here? Like, they don't have the exact same coordination as they do on offense. Of course, I don't think any team is really as good on one side as they are on the other, There are, of course, are variations, but I do find it a little bit curious as to how they are allowing so many key opportunities here to Cornell, which don't look like extremely threatening shot opportunities, I might add, as Reynez making a save here was a slight double commit there with Otto, but they found themselves back in the net anyhow. I've got to ask now, if there is sustained pressure against, then how quickly do they fall apart? And I think we've got our answer.
Thunder doing just what Thunder does, throws it up high and lets it roll right down into Gallico, and talk about a sweet finish. That absolutely pounds that one into the top shelf, and it's a game of inches. It seems like at this point from Farmingdale, they're around the play, but not enough to actually curtail it, and Cornell's shooting success continues.
And they had a little bit more pressure than we're used to seeing them with, in all honesty. And of course, just 2 shots in succession seems a bit of an outlier for them. We'll see if that story continues to be told here. Otto looking for a flip reset. I believe they've got one, but it's not enough contact to make anything significant happen. Of course, I say that things are heating up in the goaltending box here. Reynez with a speculative shot there. GameStop easily touches it out. Loads of power on it as well. Ebestru will send it back into the zone. Otto for the redirect and on target and in.
A lot of confidence going up for that, and for good reason. They got all of that ball placement. I think they might have wanted better, but GameStop, I think they expected that much power. They could not get around it in time, and will ricochet right on through. So even scoreline will continue all the way into game number 2. I wonder at what point are we going to see one team get 2 straight and be able to actually take a lead that isn't just a temporary 1 goal.
That's a good question. I think for Farmingdale, they are expecting to get a little bit more under control of this. Nice pass out front, but Ebestru unwittingly is the undoing of their own play here. And now the follow-up shot from Otto will find its way through. There was no defense for the backboard, and it'll make it 2-1.
Variety is a spice of life, but also in terms of success on offense, you see GameStop almost playing for not the read, but the catch. And the moment Otto notices that there is no one up for that, I'm just going to rush it. And then on top of that, sees the defender waiting for the dribble. They go for the challenge, and then eventually the dunk right into the net. So a good goal from Farmingdale, and now they're in the position to maybe do something with this lead. Otto, the man of the hour, getting the shot off, but brilliant save this time from GameStop.
They had to make that stop as well. 2-goal margin could very well be insurmountable. They might yet find it. Gallico bumped out of the way. Heads up play here from Ebestru just to drive it past 1 here in the mid. Past 2, GameStop getting bumped, and Gallico also on the receiving end. What are you going to do?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, there's not much you can do unless you essentially pre-jump that flick, and Ebestru knows that full well. So the moment they land, they don't rush it out, they don't go for boost, they just go for the only possible player on the Cornell roster that can touch that save. And if that person's not there, it's an easy goal. And now we have seen the situation. I was wondering what's going to happen. Apparently, at this point in game number 2, 2 minutes in, Farmingdale trying to mount an even heftier lead, and certainly they have all the control and wherewithal to do so with more controlled rotations.
Been locking it down here at the midfield. It's been a long time since we've seen Cornell actually on the attack. Another high lofting ball here from Ebestru. It will just be a giveaway now to Reynez in the midfield. They've got to get somebody to tackle this. Gallico goes first. There's no flick though from Reynez. They will not be punished for that. Otto actually missing this one in the mid as well. Some weird lack of contact in succession on 2 plays there. You can see it's caused the Cornell defense becoming a little bit confused on the back end. Gallico was able to pre-jump that and force Otto to touch it out to the side, but still, things were looking dicey there for the longest time. And then again here, Ebestru, lots of time solo in the air. You have 3 players on the back end, 2 of them completely flat-footed in the goal. You've got to start sending some people out here and taking some control of your own half of the field.
This almost gives me vibes of that Indiana game in which one team is kind of sensed the defensive structure of the other team, and now they're just going to adapt to the point of keeping it fast, keeping it high and lobbed, stealing that boost out, and then the opportunity presents itself to try to put it in the best possible place. Good placement past everybody, and for the goal number 4. So even no longer shooting 50% from the field is Otto, with that last goal being their hat trick.
And I mean, if you want to draw some parallels between series, talk about that Ohio State series that we saw for game 1, match 1 of the night, Taco. It feels like there are a lot of points now where we can say that the other team is just kind of tossing it away, and I don't really necessarily think that's going to be a sustainable game plan here. In particular, I'm talking about Cornell, of course, because we've seen some deep rotations from Farmingdale just to keep the ball in the zone. It's been working wonders for them. When their opponents can't really make any effective attacks, then that's where things start to get complicated. Another one here from Ebestru will just narrowly miss. High and wide. Reyna is also denied on that attack. But still, with Cornell being unable to actually get out onto the attacking side, it doesn't matter how accurate they are. They're never going to have any success.
Yeah, it's just about, again, we talked about this in previous aspects of rotation with other games, and that you have to lock down this midfield. Farmingdale, notice how when they're on attack, it's not that they're getting every single shot repeatedly, it's that when the ball does inevitably go out of the attacking third into the mid, it just gets sent right on back, and then they can just pretty much set up a camp and say, all right, well, we're just going to keep on doing the same thing until you're able to control the ball, to bring it to us and force us to do something different, because if it ain't broke, obviously you're not going to fix that.
Up though, Cornell on the attack. Gallico trying to lead the way, losing out on that control, and again just launched back into the opposing half. That might have been the longest possession they've had, and they instantly get punished for it. Otto, as you mentioned, the big name for game 2 here at the very least. 4 goals now to them alone, and it will be the defining moment of this match.
Yeah, and the shooting percentage continues to increase. They're above 50% now, 4 for 7, and this is a good pop-off performance. And granted, you can attribute a lot of the success for this win to, obviously, Otto for scoring the goals. But to be honest, I think it's just the fact that all the shots that they've been taking, inside that one ceiling shot, have been fairly just, I would say, fundamental. They go through for the challenge. There's no one on defense that's closing them down or turning it into a more complicated issue. So strike it well, strike it consistently, and eventually goals will fall if the defense doesn't give you something else to think about. So a very even game number 1, followed up with a very clean performance from Farmingdale, who strike back in the series.
And that deep rotation really helped them out. They managed to hold on to the control. Cornell had but a dream of scoring a second time in this game. And I think that we can safely say that the tempo has now been set here by Farmingdale. With Otto leading the way on top of the scoreboard here, it really almost feels like an insurmountable mountain at this point for Cornell. What are they going to do in order to be able to break out of this just oppressive offensive pressure that we're seeing out of Farmingdale at this point? They have to take some slow control and at least get that ball to the midfield line, guarantee themselves they're going to be able to take control of their own half of the field. There was so many times that we saw them lacking boost control even on their own side, and that will almost always lead to your downfall.
Yeah, 100%. And if you're not in control of the destiny of a defense, then you're never going to be able to actually get up on offense, because, of course, we say the best defense you can have is a good offense. And, of course, you can see the results of that in Farmingdale. The touches coming through from them, they don't really need to defend, because ultimately their focus is hitting 50s. They nearly become their own worst enemy. They've just assisted on a play, and after singing their praises, I can't think of a clunkier way to give up your first.
Yeah, I would have to agree with you on that one. Reyna is also completely wiping out after jumping at that one. I think realizing they didn't necessarily need to forfeit control of that ball just a little bit too late. Hey, but for Cornell, there you go. You are going to take that. That's the classic Rocket League way. We take those. They drive it home, but can they deal more damage than that? Gallico, nice flick here, trying to go over top of Ebestru as well, but also overtops the net. Will be sent back into their own side.
These are the types of balls that I'm really curious about how Cornell's going to deal with it. Gallico's going to take it out and try to keep it close, and that's exactly what I wanted to see. Too many times starting to realize, oh, I don't have a lot of boost, they just send it deep, but if you just keep it close to you, it gives the other team an opportunity to chase it, and more importantly, to not immediately just hit it right back. They have to adjust to you. It allows your teammates to get boost, and I think that allows a lot of control back into the hands of your squad, and I think that's confidence. It's what they need, and hold this lead, and seeing, it feels like a drought of goals based on how the other games have gone, but I think this is kind of what happens now that both teams are fully adapting to each other.
Absolutely correct. And Cornell beginning to have much longer and more involved forays into the attacking zone. Of course, as I mentioned at Otto, with a really good look here, the flick way up high. Ebestru cannot quite turn it in. The pass back, and Reyna is beaten out here by GameStop. They're off to the races. Drop down to the corner. I love the patience there by GameStop. Tossed down. Nobody's prepared for it. Gallico on the deep rotation will at least keep things under control. Tries to the pass over to Thunder, but a clear miscommunication causes them to be way late on that play. Just give it away to Ebestru.
And Ebestru is trying their darndest to get that on target, but that man cannot pull off magic. From that angle, it's only going to go across, and there's no second man. How about Reynez now on the delay on target, but Gallico with the save. They touch the corner, but Gallico tries to pass across the middle. I was going to say that's risky, but didn't work out. Didn't find maybe an unintentional target in Thunder. And we're starting to see both teams actually implement some more dribble play, intermixed with the longer ball, but both defenses are handling it well. On their horse now is Farmingdale into the far corner, lead the way with a demo, and Gallico answers right back to stop that attack and extract one more deflection and Thunder to the corner.
Was a bit close on the spawn though. 1 moment later and they would have been scored on, and they're still in dire straits here. Gallico actually narrowly avoiding a demolition there by Otto, I believe. They didn't even flinch at that one, but now Misso to the corner. Reynez couldn't make the play, and GameStop is just behind. Now Thunder a big whiff out of the side, and Gallico has to 1v1 it back to their own end. Lots of misplays in succession there, and finally, no, Ebestru misses way up high on a completely open net. The 1v1 now downfield. Gallico can't cut it back inside. They're just too far away. Trying for the ceiling shot yields nothing. This has just been a crazy turn of events here. We've seen a very punishing Farmingdale turn into a team that's, well, they haven't had nearly as much control as they would like. Gallico off the backboard, they make it happen, and somehow Cornell is holding strong. Here on the counter, they'll pick up number 2.
It almost feels like a play from Gallico where they get the save, and at this point they're just like, I need to get this, I need to get this, I need to get this, and then they hit it, and then immediately realize, oh, that's a goal.
Yeah.
I don't even know if that's intentional. I think they're just trying to beat at that player, but it's on that third man to make sure that, yes, if your back player is attacking that ball, that you are making sure that that long ball is going nowhere dangerous, and no more dangerous play to happen than be putting it right in the back of the net. 2-0 to Cornell, 90 seconds to last that out.
Goodness, what a change it's been. Certainly their game plan has shifted in a way that has been massively beneficial. At the same time, I feel like for Farmingdale, they may have gotten a little bit complacent with their status at the end of regulation in Game 2. So perhaps some changes now are merited on their side of the ball as we begin to tick down the seconds. They're certainly going to need something new here. Gallico is not having that. Otto trying to shoot post side, easily saved away. Reynez way up high now. This looks like a good pass. GameStop is there and ready for it though, and this should be completely open downfield. The worst case scenario yet again here for Farmingdale.
I guess it's the right type of season. Gallico just picking cherries downfield. They're just so excited to collect that next goal, but I don't blame them. They're upfield and they immediately turn around. I'd have to think it's because of the communication or just the trust in their teammates to read that pass as they did and serve them up with an easy finish. This is truly a turn of events that I did not see coming. Cornell is, I would even say, looking more confident, but they are just moving so much quicker, and I don't think Farmingdale really knows how to handle it. Maybe just dug it through. At least there's a sign of life. 1 goal with 34 to go.
Yeah, I suppose now the odds are no worse than they were just a moment ago here. Ebestru, I think, getting a little bit fortunate on that one. I won't say lucky, but fortunate that the opponent decided to hit it directly in that direction. They still need a bit of a miracle here if they want to bring this one back. There is lots of time off the face-off here, and GameStop has to touch that one away from Ebestru. They will not make the same mistake twice in a row. Will Cornell, Reynez, that was just too high. Otto can still turn on it, but they're beaten out by GameStop this time. And Gallico will ensure the possession stays with Cornell here into the final 15 seconds of gameplay. Nice dunk there by GameStop. That should just about close things down here. So I say that, Otto, the flip reset over the top and in! And I may have called it just a little bit too early here.
Otto's been going for these all day, but eventually, if you don't contest, you can't always rely. They're not going to bang one through eventually. 2, 3, 6 seconds to go. Now, it's all about the kickoff.
And it is. Cornell, they had a lot of difficulty in game 2. Oh, no! What? You gotta be joking! All of that build-up, the flip reset from Otto, just for this? What?
Their last second adjustment almost makes me feel like they were trying to deflect it to the corner, because you did have a player out there in the side kind of driving up immediately, but I can't really tell. That's heartbreaking. That is, I would say, a missed opportunity of sorts, but they had plenty of that beforehand. Cornell, they took theirs. They're going to get that victory.
Yeah, I'll tell you, for Cornell, that was definitely a sigh of relief at that point. I mean, you get scored on with a flip reset with 6 seconds to go against a team who just beat you 5-1, and you're like, oh god, everything is going wrong. That we're just, it's all going downhill from here. We already lost, and well, maybe not going that far, but still. And then just to get a kickoff goal, they're just thinking to themselves like, huh, imagine that. Look at that. You know, it really is that easy. So now Farmingdale, the team for, you know, which for all intents and purposes, I think have looked better in this series overall, now find themselves on match point against.
Yep. And now it's suddenly this situation in which you don't really know what to trust. You don't know if your game plan is working, or maybe you just had a bad game, and if you don't figure that out soon, it can get a little bit weird out there. So as we look now at the Cornell on match point, now it's about making sure that you're not giving up free goals. I don't care if you're playing a team that you don't really respect, or if you're playing the CRL National Champions, you cannot give away those wide open shots, because players like GameStop are going to cram it right into the bar.
Well, I'll be honest. If you told me where the series was going after Game 2, I would not believe you. But here we sit with Cornell now leading. Only having to hold on to this lead for 4 minutes and 44 seconds longer. Granted, that is loads of time in Rocket League, so don't change the channel just yet, ladies and gents. But certainly an excellent start here. Mr. almost gets a bit of a lucky dunk there. Thunder, oh, they're dire straits, and they're not going to get that one away. That pop-up is about the last thing you want to see in front of your own net.
And a good job by EBS Drew. They didn't challenge that immediately, and GameStop is desperately trying to get the ball to try to force a 50, but there's none there. So it lobs out, and then they throw it right back into the mixer. Defense can't handle it, understandably, and it goes through the goal. It's good pressure, throwing in dangerous positions, and seeing if the defense can handle it.
Immediately back to tie. This is exactly where you want to be if you're a fan of Farmingdale. But they still got a little bit of work to do here. They've had some more difficulty, especially with the changes that we saw from Cornell in that last game. Oh, big miss there. Gallico is there for the save, though. GameStop also back there on the goal line. There was a slight double commit. Perhaps they're a little bit antsy about the situation at hand. Cable chases one downfield. Gallico trying for something of a flick here. It doesn't have too big of an impact on the play, though. Will be safely guided now back to the midfield line. Cornell and Farmingdale tied still as we move into minute number 2.
That's true. Lobbing it near post. Double commit technically, but I think they just wanted to be extra sure that that was going wide, and we'll be able to escape that last attack. Otto, the combo with Reyes to Ebestru, the bump play. It's all coming together for Farmingdale.
You could not ask for a more perfect setup here. Rain is up to Otto, down to Ebestru, and Gallico getting tossed to the moon here in the net. That is just textbook Rocket League at that point. Of course, there was a slight touch. The Cornell defender there on the back wall, post ace there from Otto's contact. But, you know, you take what you can get. They certainly will take goal number 2 to enter themselves into the lead. Yet again in this series. Oh boy, GameStop, no contact there. Gallico is available for the backup. Got Heritage down the sidewall. The speed is there from GameStop. I think we'll get dunked out here by Otto. Again, it's this neutral game that we're looking at that is going to be a definitive factor. And Ebestru actually cannot snipe the right side of the net with that one. There was a desperate attempt there by the defense to make something happen. They were unable to make contact.
Reyes trying to make contact right here, but I don't think they expected that shot to come to him. That's going to go well wide. Ebestru chasing down. Oh, they're looking for blood, and they're going to find it. Otto follow up again over the bar, and Gallico will probably just heave this one downfield and take a deep sigh, because Cornell has been under a lot of pressure admirably. Still, it's only 2-1, but we have just hit halftime, and as he said earlier, if you told me how the series is going to go, I wouldn't believe you, but now I don't even know what to believe. Both teams are fully in it.
Yep. They certainly are, but now with Cornell having some continued offensive pressure, I am a bit fearful for Farmingdale. They are certainly letting things get close there in front of their net. Thunder now off the backboard. It looks so dangerous. They're playing a deep second and third player here on the Cornell side. They'll at least get a safe transition back on the defense. What a dunk here from Gallico as well. They'll grab the boost. They've got loads of time now, way up in the air, and this looks like it could be a goal on the way. They will get blocked, though. That's the kind of aggression you need to have on the defense if you find yourself in that situation. And now downfield, Ebestru down low. Easy counterattack here.
And that was a spacing issue that I always hated personally. You get a flick through. This player, they could shoot it, they could throw it low, they could flick it again. So you just dive at it and then realize they're just playing for 50 anyway. They have it all under control. E-Best true. Dunking it through. 3-1. Now they got a bit of a cushion to protect, and they need that cushion because they are looking to force game number 5.
What they do. Game not over yet, but honestly, based on what we've seen out of past results here in this series, hard pressed to say that Cornell has much of a chance in this one. E-Best True blocked out early there by GameStop. They need somebody out of this ball. Gallico's going to force it, but there's nobody ready for the secondary. I actually like this play for a second, but when it results in a goal against, you could not ask for a worse result.
And Gallico actually opts to go to the boost instead of trying to go for the ball, maybe expecting that that ball would be handled regardless of where it went, but I think everyone had different expectations on that play. Wide open goal, as you had said. And in this game, also, according to previous results, it's definitely going the way of Farmingdale, but once it seems like they have a couple of goals, I don't know, it just seems like Cornell just doesn't have an answer, or they get nervous. I don't know. As long as they get as close, it seems like Cornell always has the answer, but after that, everything just kind of falls off the rails.
Yeah, this is exactly the story that we've seen go back and forth twice now. It was Cornell game 1, 1-goal game. Very close. It was Farmingdale in game 2. Absolute destruction with 5-1 being the final scoreline. And now here again, after Cornell took a relatively close game, it's 5-1 for Farmingdale.
And it comes from such a tough of plays, too, because Gallico, they're not even doing anything wrong there. They just tap it forward, land, and then go for an aerial. But instead of playing the clear, or the long ball, they played clear to the side. They side flip past it, and then it just turns into, I think, an accidental setup from Reynez, but they're going to bury it nonetheless. And that 5-goal scoreline, I think, will do a lot to just remind Farmingdale, this is what we need to succeed. This is what we need to get back to, and I think they're would be boosted going into game number 5 because 20 seconds remaining. I think Cornell could maybe get a little bit of a morale boost out of a goal, but come back very much so has left the picture a couple minutes ago.
I'd care to agree. Triple commit here on the defense as well. You can see that things are not exactly in the right headspace for them. Nice pre-flip save, though, there by Thunder. But, again, you know, this is just how back and forth the series has been. It's difficult to accurately assess how the next game is going to go because it feels like a very thematic or pattern-based series at this point where, you know, it's 4-3, game 1. 5-1, game 2. 4-2, only very narrowly. It was almost a 3-2 game for Cornell. But either way, very close game. And then 5-1 blowout. So I am tempted to believe that these teams have been able to adapt to each other. Yes, and that being the case, Cornell should basically have this one on lock. Although, I've got to be honest, I noticed that they seem to kind of recur back to what we saw earlier in that they're just giving the possession back away over to Farmingdale more often than not, which is strange, to say the least.
I think it's especially strange because it's inconsistent. I keep applauding them because I want to point out that in these replays, even when they do give up goals, sometimes they just have the plan in place. They have the 50, they're getting a catch, and then last second they'll just flip away from it, or they'll miss a 50, or they'll go for a read that I didn't really think was as dangerous as the other option, and then they bite the dust because of it. So it could just become down to momentary lapses in judgment if you're just playing kind of a weird read or you go for a boost instead of the dunk on a long ball. Your team could pay for that. So with Game 5, I really feel like they need to keep it as close as possible, and the way they do that is making sure you're locking down the midfield, making sure you're not having those silly mistakes, because Farmingdale, they don't need any more invitations. They'll take all the goals they can get.
Cornell can get more out onto the offense with more consistency. This should pretty well be a done deal. And speaking of, that one almost just trickled right in. Thunder has to force this one off the sidewall, and already Cornell has a majority offense. Although it looks like that story may well change. I really feel like this has been the story of who can play more on the offensive zone. It seems rather simple. You know, say for game 1 where Cornell had loads of counterattack goals, one-off chances that resulted in goal scoring. But other than that, it really seems like that has been the deciding factor. And Gallico, nice save up high here. Not be able to make a follow-up. Reynez over the top of the last player. Thunder's not able to get there. And the first goal goes over to Farmingdale.
Can't help but smile whenever I see plays like this. It's so easy to just shoot that or power shot it. But instead, they know, well, both players are back. Maybe let's bait one in. And then as soon as they catch it, player commits. They get a quick flick. They don't hold it any longer than they need to, and it goes right in. It's all fundamentals, but it takes a lot of awareness and a lot of, I would say, mental fortitude to keep yourself focused in that play and execute when you need to.
Presence of mind is a very difficult thing to master when it comes to Rocket League, or esports in general, so I care to agree. It's an excellent play there for Reynez, putting their team on top, but they've got to hold on to this lead. Nice long clear should help things out. Drew now out of the rotation, however. Better to field this one on the sidewall. Doesn't really make any significant progress. Easy force there for Reynez, but they don't really have the backup. But then again, neither does Cornell. GameStop has to make a bit of a late challenge, realizing they have the opportunity. Now things are looking a little bit complicated here on the back end. Gallico for a shot, and that one will go through. Things look like they were under control for the longest time, but it just falls apart.
Great trigger discipline here from Cornell. It's so easy to go for these shots a bit faster or maybe go for some unnecessary things, but instead, Thunder stays in the play, knocks it somewhat quickly, and then immediately Gallico goes for it and just puts it anywhere between the posts. And it seems like something that, yeah, of course, that is what you're supposed to do, but the biggest issue sometimes when you're playing a team like Farmingdale is if they're playing fast and playing efficiently, it's not going to be a huge gap of time in which you're able to get the shot. So when that ball does pop out and you do have an opportunity, you need to get to it as quickly as possible. And it seems like Gallico is the go-to player for Cornell for that very purpose.
Couldn't agree more. I feel if Cornell takes this, Gallico, for me, definitely going to be the standout player. I mean, particularly that Game 1 victory, as you mentioned. I believe they had 100% goal participation on top of the fact, or sorry, no, they didn't. I'm thinking of a different game. But they did have 6 saves, which you can, I think, safely say is a majority of the participation on the defensive side. So at least there is that going for them. And of course, goal number 1 in this game. They're searching for more, though. It's kind of zone time for Cornell. Does look rather dangerous if you're on the blue side. Nice long clear from Reynez, and GameStop side flips. That's going to give a heck of a lot of space and time now over to Farmingdale to recuperate. Maybe just reset, grab some boost, maybe put a shot on target or two. Reynez is here for the follow-up. Thunder with the pop way up high, but they're in a complicated spot now. Otto, the drop down is there, and the follow-up from Reynez. Top bar and in.
You can almost hear the hyperventilating coming from the Cornell side as they're just rushing around, desperately trying to get a touch, and even when they get save after save after save, double commits are going to hurt them, and they get deflections they just cannot counter. Reynez is there, the ball is dropping in the box. That's a very brutal goal to give up for Cornell, because up until that point, it seemed like they were right back in it. Maybe they very much are, but Gallico could not put it in that time.
Not that time, but they have still a chance at this one. Like a reasonably good play there for a moment, but Drew didn't really have too many options there off the sidewall. Long clear, Thunder is chasing it down. He's able to force it across Gallico. Key boost grab, but cannot keep the play in the zone. Now Reynez, open lane, but cannot get the shot on target. Was completely there. Nobody available to make that save. A huge missed chance there for Farmingdale. They'll maintain the offense here into the final 100 seconds of Game 5, but still, they could really use that insurance.
And they're looking for it right now. They keep sending it high, and unfortunately for Cornell, they have enough boost, but that boost can't last forever, especially if it stayed in their half. Drew double tap well over. Otto on the follow, but all they will meet is the bumper of Cornell. Reynez, third time the charm, to the back post, past a couple of them, but now a fast break. It's Gallico. Who else with the flick? Drew, what a save to keep their team in the lead.
Absolutely coming in the clutch, but the triple commit there on the back end for Cornell. Disallowed them the ability to make that a particularly effective offensive. They will keep in the blue half, though. This is a key red zone moment. Gallico, the return. Reynez is able to stop it out, but there is no possession just yet on the defensive side. Thunder has to get this one under control, is able to do so, but only for a moment. 2 players now gone. GameStop is able to get things wrangled yet again. Out in front, Drew up the backboard. Things really starting to heat up now in the closing moments. Cornell very desperate. No touch there from Thunder. This allows a huge opportunity now. Drew in the mid. The drop down. He's blocked away by Gallico. And now Reynez in the 1v1. He's 15 away. And Gallico will clean up GameStop. What a play in the midfield to keep it clutch.
GameStop take a bow, but not for too long. You still might have to play overtime. What a setup to be able to get in the way, knock it down, and then Gallico, almost anticipatorily, will just turn toward it and knock it into the open net. Psychologically, the the hardest shot in the game, but they do it with aplomb. Now, 20 seconds remaining. What lies in store for Cornell? Maybe it's an Ebestru flick to the middle. No, will be stopped through. One more from Gallico, looking for the tuck underneath, and they get it through!
No way does Gallico pull this one off! You can see GameStop stops out right there because they realize it's like, nah, I'm not taking this from the star player. Absolutely not in your lifetime. And Reynez trying to wait for the flip reset. It gets outplayed in a way they never thought imaginable. 10 seconds now on the clock. Cornell with the lead so late in this game. They win the face-off. They put it towards the net, and they get the dagger. GameStop for the game-winning goal here. Decidedly, undoubtedly, it's Cornell.
3 goals in 17 seconds. I'd call it a collapse, but they're all so well earned. What a performance from Cornell. We had our doubts earlier on, but there is no doubt now. This team has showed up so many times throughout the series, and what a chance to save your pop-off moment. Cornell in 5.
Dang, you could not ask for a more hectic ending. But again, Taco, it follows the pattern that I was talking about earlier. Cornell, a 4-2 victory, the exact same thing that we saw in Game 3. This is just ridiculous. I can't believe that such a... You know, on paper, you would look at this and you would think, wow, that's predictable. Yeah, you know, I don't think it is. I don't really think it's that predictable, to be honest.
I mean, it was really interesting. And those are actually... I would even go so far as say is like these are the exact type of series why when people ask me, why do you commentate a lot of Collegiate Rocket League? Because of games like this. I didn't know what was happening. Everything is unpredictable, but it's dramatic. It's changing. There's a lot of adaptations, and there's not a clear storyline or narrative with a lot of these teams, but it builds throughout. And games like this where you have a player who is the hero, and they have a chance to show up, and then they falter, and then they drop a game, and then come back in the best possible way. It's so lovely to see. And Cornell, I mean, 3 goals in 17 seconds. I barely even expected the second one. It was just, what a way to be able to save your pop-off moment, like I said earlier. And certainly a well-deserved victory, maybe a bit closer than they might have wanted.
Yeah, and it was an incredibly bipolar series, I think, by and large, because we saw so many instances where we were looking at Cornell and we're thinking to ourselves, like, oh my goodness, you know, they're having like these misplays. Even there in the last game, there were a couple of those moments where it was just like, oh no, Thunder side flipped, and now there's so much space for their opponents, and everything is gonna, you know, be a disaster. Oh my goodness, they just triple committed on the defense. Things are in shambles. Clearly, they're going to get scored on, right? Well, shockingly enough, that's not necessarily what happens all the time. So things, subverting expectations, it's not necessarily the worst thing in the world that could happen in a game of Rocket League. In fact, I would care to say that it's one of the best things you could possibly expect. I mean, even that goal from Gallico, I believe it was to tie things up or to take the lead. I can't remember which one it was. They were all just insane. But Gallico with the solo play and just absolutely just juke the brakes off of Reynez at near the end there. I mean, nobody could ever predict that. You know, when I saw him going for the flip reset, I was like, yeah, he either gets the flip reset and you know, scores, you know, like, or at least hits it in this direction, or he doesn't get the flip reset and it just kind of drops out, and that's the end of the play. And then Gallico like hits it with a secondary that I never saw coming, and I can only assume that Reynez was in the same spot. And I was like, oh my god, I couldn't believe it. I just couldn't believe my eyes. That's the way it goes.
And it's really improvisational, and I always love situations like that where you are looking through the play and you're trying to determine, okay, can I figure out the best way to beat through a player? And of course, highly mechanical players are saying, yeah, we'll flip reset, we'll air dribble, we'll air dribble bump, we'll be able to get a breezy flick, which actually Calico almost pulled off. They pulled off a fake breezy if the viewers caught that. But then past that, when you're looking at a situation like that, just the threat and the awareness of saying this player can do anything they want with the ball, I need to be aware of everything, and then go for the fake into the pinch to the other side. Like, I was blown away how 200 IQ that was. Just such a heads-up play throughout the series, but to have the wherewithal mentally just to keep yourself focused, knowing you need that to take the lead, and then hitting it, it's a beautiful way to end out the day.
Yeah, and of course, you know, from the other perspective, how heartbreaking does that have to be? How much control do they think they had in that game? And we talked about it during that game as well. They had chances to get that third goal, right? To get things back under their control. And of course, with butterfly effects being the way that it is, Cornell may never have even scored a second goal if they had gotten that insurance. So they look back on that series now and they're thinking to themselves like, well, did we just lose that because we missed on what was pretty much an open net opportunity? And the answer is probably, to be honest, So, I mean, like, looking back on it in retrospect, you had the lead 2-1 for the longest time, and then in the dying moments, 3 goals against, and that's it. The series is just over there. I mean, that's just got to be crushing in so many ways.
But this is why this is the early part of the season where you can work out those issues, because it's just as much, hey, we got kind of beast on mechanically as you saw in some other series, but it is also just mentally being able to say, hey, we need a goal, or it's a tie game and we maybe for overtime, or at least just trying to make sure that no mistakes come out. Everything is tapped down. There's no awkward 50s, no awkward balls in the midfield. And I think when those plays did pop up, Cornell was the one that tried to force them and then took advantage of them accordingly. So it's a very good job by them to be able to do all that together. And I'm excited to be able to sit down and talk with them, so we have them on the line, because I do want to pick their brain on like exactly what even is going through the minds of a player when the series, as you mentioned, I think a perfect word, bipolar. It's just no predictability of like, is this going to be complete blowout, or are we going to be neck and neck and it'll be flawless for how we want to the rest of the series to go.
And of course, these kinds of results, always something that we enjoy watching from the outside in, especially when you consider that, again, these are two teams that you wouldn't necessarily consider for top-tier contenders. But you still look at it and you think to yourself, like, yeah, these are some pretty high-quality competitors overall. And I think that not only is it great that we have, NACE Starleague for this kind of an outlet, but it's also great that Collegiate Rocket League as a whole is such a talented community. Because I look at some other esports, and I gotta be honest, you get some teams in, for instance, like competitive CSGO in smaller leagues that, they might have like an LEM on them or two, perhaps, but sometimes you get teams that have such a huge rank disparity. You might have a Gold Nova on a team paired off with a global elite. You don't really have that in Rocket League. It's not common that you have a team with just like one champ, one player, matched up with some supersonic legends. You usually have like 3 GC2s at least, even in the lower level, like Cornell and Farmingdale here. Like, they obviously had some very high caliber players on both sides for every single slot that was available to them. I love it.
And that consistency, honestly, I could argue the consistency might boost teams more than just having that pop-off player. I think a lot of players focus on saying, wow, this player's going through it. I mean, the reason why oftentimes when you see some teams falter is because you might have a very good player on a roster. I think Stevens Institute of Technology is one example. They have Beastabonium on a roster, who is a pro RLCS level player, and they get a decent way through the bracket, but eventually you just need to be able to have enough of the tools, because they don't falter because they're playing poorly. They only falter because they're running up against a team of just the same ranked, consistent level, kind of coherent level of players where everything clicks, everything works together, and there is no player that's like, in that situation, I can't hit that shot. Can someone else take it from me? And I think that's a really important thing to see. However, if we reset that series, we don't know how it goes. I think we replay that over and over again. But we do know how this one ended, and we do know we're talking to Thunder from Cornell. And Thunder, after a series like that, how does it feel to really be able to have that kind of a comeback at the dying breaths of Game 5?
Well, to be truly honest, we just kept hyping each other up, and we knew that as a team we would have to like fight hard. We knew that they were taking our games one by one. They were constantly pressing hard. As you saw, it went back and forth. We won, they won, but we just kept the intensity high, and we were really hyped when we scored those last few goals. So I just like to thank my team for really pushing themselves to really take this series. So.
Yeah, well, I mean, you got to hand it to your teammates and yourself as well. I mean, you guys all made some pretty key plays, but in particular, Gallico just popped off there at the end. You talk about hyping each other up. That was just absolutely massive. The rotations started to come out for you guys. There were some panic moments, I will admit, but like Gallico just at the end there was absolutely nuts. Like at that point when he scored that second goal for you guys to tie that up, what exactly were you thinking about that? Were you thinking like this is the Cornell that we want them to see, or was it just kind of one of those moments where everything is crazy?
No, this is the Cornell that we want. We want people to see because honestly, last season we didn't have such a good season, but now we're trying to start off as strong as we can, and really taking this dub has really secured that. And yeah, Gallico's been popping off lately. We've been telling him to just move up the field because honestly, he's our goal scorer. He's the one who's going to put us in the good setup so we can score those goals. So anytime that we can push him up, that we're just going to succeed. And when he's popping off, we're feeling good. And if we all stay hyped, we're going to have a pretty good season.
And when it comes to this series, of course, you say it pulls through. Galco is the player that you expect to, pop off, get your goals. But throughout the series, there was obviously struggles with that. You guys dropped a couple games, obviously, to go through this game 5. But what is your reaction, and what would your explanation be for how kind of strange this series seemed? It went from very close games to kind of one-sided games, and yeah, you never lost hope of the end sight, and you got that dub. But what was it like to go game to game and have to adapt to scorelines like that?
Well, it was actually so complex because, like you said, we kept it close, but then after like every even numbered game, like game 2 and game 4, Farmingdale was just boost starving us like crazy, and we were just suffering. And we were just like, "Yo, we're so empty, bro. We're just gonna concede because there's no way we can hold them." But I'm just glad that we just held strong in games 1, 3, and 5, and we were able to push through. So we'll see what our opponents have in store for us next round.
Yeah, well, I gotta be honest, you guys made some great changes during that game, and you kind of touched a little bit on what I was going to ask here next, is the changes that you all made from game to game. I mean, when you talk about, hey, we were getting massively boost starved here in game 2, we didn't see the same story, right? You guys had so much more zone time. In game 3, for instance, same can be said for game 5. You had so much more zone time. Were there any particular focuses, some parts of the Farmingdale like defense, for instance, that you wanted to break down and start to tear apart at the seams? Because it seems like you did something right.
Yeah, we needed to push up. We just needed to push up. We could not suffer another game just sitting in our box trying to clear balls. We knew that if we stay close to the ball and get those 50-50 balls, we were going to be successful and push it to their half more. I tried to go for a couple demos. I know my team did too. And whenever we just started clicking on the ball, making sure we were in front of it, making sure that they didn't have any passing options, we knew that we could shut them down instantly. And that's when we pushed into their half on a counterattack, take them 1v1, 2v1 if we had numbers up. But as long as we pushed as a squad and a union, then we're all good. So
I love that approach to all your movement, and obviously you're putting the cherry on top for the Rocket League broadcast today because you are our last Rocket League match of the day. So thank you so much, Thunder, for sitting down with us. Anyone you want to shout out before we let you go?
I'd just like to shout out my team. They're the ones that have supported me this entire way. Yesterday we had CRL. We did do okay, but I'm really thankful to Gallico and GameStop for really helping me improve because I know that last semester, my first season for Cornell, it was actually quite difficult, and I had to adapt to a new playing style. And they've been really here to support me, going through replays, playing extra games with me, so I can actually just hold down the fort when I need to. And I'm grateful to have them on my team.
That's wonderful to hear. Honestly, I honestly wish you best of luck. You guys pulled out a good victory here, and can't wait to see what you do in the future. Thank you so much, Thunder.
Thank you, guys.
Wow, what a nice bow to put on the NACE Rocket League broadcast for today.
Yeah. Wholesome AF, as they say.
As the kids say nowadays, yeah.
As the kids say, yeah, making me feel old over here in my late early 20s.
I'm fairly certain I'm still older than you, so don't worry about it. It's against my job.
You think you're still older than me? Oh my goodness.
100% sure.
Oh my goodness. But yep. Awesome day for matches. I gotta be honest, we had some highs, we had some lows, but 2 game 5s, as I recall. We're just gonna ignore that middle game. Although it was fairly close at times in match number 2 of the night, I gotta say that Cornell matchup was just insane.